What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to continue on our journey of creating a custom WordPress theme. Alright, so if you haven't seen the previous videos, this is going to be part of an ongoing video series and playlist. Make sure you take a look at those first. I'll leave a link in the description area and in the card section in the upper right hand corner. So definitely check that out. But these are the videos themselves right here. There's the first video in the series that gives you a walkthrough of the underscore starter theme. Definitely check that one out. The second video goes over some of the development tools that I use when I create websites and WordPress themes and plugins and things of that nature. I use Git, Gulp, Sass, I'm using MAMP, and some of the other tools will be covered in the video. And then the third video in the series is about how to merge Bootstrap with the underscore starter theme. Now, underscores is a great starter theme. It's maintained by the team at Automatic. They're the ones in charge of WordPress. And Bootstrap is considered one of the best front-end frameworks that you could use when creating websites. So definitely watch that video. And in the process of watching the videos, you'll be able to see the code that I'm using and the changes I'm making as I go along. So definitely, if needed, just pause the video, copy the code, and then just start back up wherever you left off. But if you want to get the actual files and folders that I'm working with, then just go to PixemWeb.com/DevWP and then go over here to get DevWP, and then for just $10 a year you'll get all the files and folders as I make the changes to DevWP itself. That way you'll have the code with you at all times. You'll save them to your local computer, you'll be able to change the code around, refactor it, and as a new version comes out, I'll just send you another copy of the files and folders for DevWP. I'll share it with you via either Google Drive or Dropbox. And it'll just make your whole entire process a lot smoother and faster when you're creating a theme. Alright, so again, if you want to get the files, go to PixemWeb.com/DevWP and then click on Get DevWP. Alright, so what we're going to be covering in this video is we're going to be taking care of a couple of things. First thing you should do, make sure you fire up your local web server. I'm using MAMP, but you could use WAMP or XAMPP. Once you do that, just log into your local website. And this is the way it looks on my local server right now. And then you're going to want to make sure you get your code editor up and running as well. So in the previous videos, I was using the Atom text editor, which is a great text editor to use. It's free and open source. But for this video, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. I'm trying out this text editor. It's also free and open source. You can get it from code.visualstudio.com. I'll show you the website now. It works on Windows, Mac, and Linux as well. So you can just use it on any operating system you're using for development. And I'm trying out this text editor because another YouTuber that I'm subscribed to, his name is Ricky Garcia, he did a comparison of Sublime Text versus Visual Studio Code. So I figured, let me try it out. And it seems to have a lot of good features. So I'm going to do a couple of videos with this code editor. And then in another video, I'll just do a comparison of Atom and Visual Studio Code side by side. Alright, so what you want to do here is make sure you have your folder open, and this is going to be a similar process as with any other text editor. You just go to File. You can either open a file or you can open up a folder. So I already have my folder opened over here. And what I like about Visual Studio Code is the tight integration it has and some of the features it has when it comes to using the terminal, using Git and other things of that nature. So for example, I'm going to bring up a terminal window right here inside the text editor. Alright, so to do that, I'll just hit Control and the tick mark, which is located in the upper left-hand corner of your keyboard. Or you could just go to View and then Integrated Terminal. So as you can see, it brings me right over here to the terminal. And this is using Git Bash, and I configured Visual Studio Code to use Git Bash instead of the PowerShell that normally it would use for the terminal functionality. You could do this also with the Atom text editor, and I'll show you that very quickly. Alright, so now I'm in my Atom text editor, and the way I would do it here is I would hit the Alt, Shift, and T command inside the text editor, and it'll pop up my Git Bash window in a separate window. Now this is fine. This is actually really good because what it'll do, it'll bring you directly to the folder you're currently working in terms of the text editor. But it's still a different window, so maybe you don't want to have it like that. Now I'm using a package, and I'll show you what package that is. I'm using the Atom-Terminal package. I'm using this one because it works out of the box. There's another one that you could use. If you go to Install, type out Terminal, you can install Terminal Plus. It doesn't always work. It depends on how your operating system is set up. And there's some workarounds, and as you can see, it's a very popular package. But since I'm always resetting my PC and I'm always wiping things out and starting from scratch, I like things to work out of the box. So that's why I'm using the other one. Alright, so I'm going to X out of this now. So now we're here. The next thing you're going to have to do is you remember we're using Git for version control, and we're using Gulp for our task manager. So here, we're currently in our DevWP folder. You can see these are all the files and folders that we have there. But now I'm going to change directory. Now I'm going to my themes folder. And you can see this is where we have Git installed and our Git ignore file, our dev-project folder. And that's where Gulp is sitting at. And then we have the DevWP theme here. Alright, so I'm going to change directory again. Alright, so here we have our Gulp file and our package.json file and our node underscore modules folder as well. Alright, so that's why you should watch the other videos so you can see how I set this all up. It's a little bit of a process to set it up at first, but trust me, it'll save you a significant amount of time later on. So definitely check out that video. So from here, I'll type out Gulp. It'll start processing it. And as you can see, since we're using Browserify, it opened up a new tab. Now this one here, we're logged in. This is from our local server, but this one's not going to be refreshed in real time, so we'll always have to refresh the browser. Over here, this is using Browserify, so this one will be refreshed in real time. But there's something I want to also have you do. I want you to right click, click on inspect, and then we'll bring this up real quick. If you go to network, make sure you toggle this on over here to disable the cache, because sometimes your browser might save some stuff in the cache. And if you leave this on like that at all times, while you're inspecting elements, you could still play around with the formatting of it. You can check things out. Then you won't have any cache problems. Alright, so we're going to leave that like that for now. This is logged in. This is not logged in. I also like having a new tab that's not logged in. That way when I do inspect elements and I look at page source, I'm not going to get the clutter that I normally get when I have the admin bar and some of the backend code that's generated with that. Alright, so that's that. So now let's start coding. What are we going to work on first? Well, we're going to work on this navigation bar over here. We're going to make this look better. We're going to work on this issue over here in terms of the font size also. We'll do that first. If we go over here to elements and we look over here, we can see here that the body, button, input, select, opt group, and text area is using a font size of 16 pixels, 1 rem. So we're going to change that up. And you can also look at the computed values as well. Over here it says the font size is actually going to be at 10 pixels. So there's a couple of ways we can deal with this. And I'm going to show you how to do that now. We'll bring this back down. We're going to go into our code editor now. I'll bring this terminal thing down and I'll hide it at the bottom. Alright, so now just remember we're not changing anything in the style.css. We're not touching this file ever, because we're working solely in the Sass folder when it comes to our CSS. Gulp is going to go through the process of putting any changes that we make into our style.css file. And that way we can actually have everything nicely organized and easier to manage. This is important because as your CSS file gets larger, you want to be able to easily maintain it. So doing this prep work is definitely going to be advantageous. We're going to open up the style.scss file, and then I'll show you real quick over here. Alright, so we have the style.scss file and we have the style.css file. And since we already have Gulp running in the background, any changes we make here will be reflected here. So I want you to look at the version number over here. It says 1.0.0. It says the same thing over here. If we change this here and then save it, it'll process over here. You see it just processed everything. And when we go over here, now that changed also. So that's why you don't need to touch anything here, because everything in the Sass folder is going to take care of that. Alright, so we'll X out of that. But now if we start looking over here, we're going to see some stuff that we just don't need. So we're going to get rid of this stuff. We don't need to normalize because Bootstrap is already going to take care of a lot of the normalization and browser support stuff. So we could just delete that line right there. And then also over here, because that's just going to create a lot of duplicate code that we just don't need. And then we'll save that. Alright, so now this is the file that was being called in by style.scss. As you can see there at importing into this main style.scss file. each of these other files. We just deleted the normalized one, so we could just delete it here. So that's done. All right, the next thing we're going to want to look at again is the actual size of the text. Inspect our element again, bring this up. We can see it's coming in at 10 pixels. Click over here, we can see where that's coming from. And we can see the code that's actually generated for that. So now because we have this information, we could work with that. Let's reduce that size, go back to our code editor, get X out of this for now. We're going to go over here to typography and typography.scss. And we see our body, button, input, select, op group, and text area is using the color _ text main variable, font family. And then we're using the add include font dash size and then 1. So there's a couple of ways we can take care of this. We can either do it here where we say 1.6. We can save it there. And now you see that in the browser, it just readjusted. So now if we bring this back up, you see over here, it changed from just a 1 to 1.6. Browserify already took care of everything for us as well. Another area that you could take care of it if you want, we can leave this the way it is. And now you see it's back down to the just the 1. And we can go into our mixins because this is using a mixin. So open up your mixins-master.scss file. And over here you can change some stuff if you want. So instead of doing it here, you could do it here. So if you want, you can make that an 8 and then make this 1.8. We'll save that. And now we see the same effect took place. We'll open this up. Now we see the font size is still 1, but the computed text, if we go back here to elements, is 18 pixels, 1.8 rems, and being converted to 18 pixels. Alright, so that's fine. There's a couple of ways to do it also. There's other things you could target. You can make very specific classes for different sections, and we're going to do a lot of this stuff as we go through the course. But I just wanted to walk you through that part and show you how we can fix the font sizing. Alright, so now let's take care of the navigation over here. This is the default navigation that comes with underscores, and of course we have to style this out. So as always, you could always inspect the element. You can see what it's targeting, and then we can work with it from there. Alright, go back to the code editor. I'm going to X out of this for now, and I'll X out of this one as well. So what we're going to have to do is change some code in our header.php file, so open that up. And then we're also going to have to add some code to our functions.php file. So what I want to do now is I'll navigate down here. We're going to work on the nav section. This is what we're going to target over here. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paste in some code, and I'm going to replace this over here, and I'm going to add a new file. So what I'm going to do here is I'll go up in my folder structure. In the includes folder, I'm going to right click, new file, and I'm going to name this file wp-bootstrap-navwalker.php. So wp-bootstrap-navwalker.php. Hit enter, return, and now we have this blank file here. Alright, so I'm going to paste some code, and what this is a nav walker. We need to use this since we're using Bootstrap. So this can be found on GitHub. And what it's doing is that it's extending the built-in nav walker that comes with WordPress. And this is what's going to give us support for Bootstrap itself. There's no need to really go over everything here because we're not going to change any of the code in this page right here. We're just pasting it in, and just make sure you add that file to your folder structure and then save it. Alright, so once you do that, nothing's going to happen immediately because we have to go back into our functions.php file, scroll to the bottom. And down here, I'm just going to copy this section, paste it. I'm going to change the comments block, Bootstrap Nav Walker, and I'm going to include that file. So wp-bootstrap-navwalker.php. We already had the PHP there. Alright, so you want to make sure this is spelled out correctly. So we're using the get template directory function that's built into WordPress. And then we're going into our includes folder and then getting that file. So now we just saved that. Again, nothing's going to happen as of yet because now we have to change some code inside our header.php file. Target this code in particular. We're going to swap this out, and then I'll walk you through what that code does. Alright, so I'll remove this and just paste in my new code and then save it. Alright, so what we just did, place in a new section of code. We have our div class over here, and that has a class of site-nav. And then we have our nav element here, ID of menu, class navbar default. We have the 8 columns. And then we have our navbar header over here. Then we have our button over here for when it's toggled. And then over here we're jumping into PHP. We're going into the WP underscore nav underscore menu function for WordPress. We have an array. And then the menu is primary, theme locations primary, depth is 2, containers a div, container underscore class is a collapse, navbar collapse, container ID, you see that there. And then we're creating a new instance of the WP Bootstrap Nav Walker class. Alright, so just save that. And in your functions.php file, make sure that you have your register nav menus set to primary. In a previous video, it was set to menu-1. Now we're just setting it to primary. So if we go back to our browser, let's see what happens. Alright, so you see that since we're using Browserify, in the background, it automatically updated the page for us. Now let's just reduce the size and see what happens. Alright, not too bad. That's how it looks right now. But we're going to customize this a little bit further. Alright, we're going to add some CSS. We're going to add some hover effect because as it stands now, let me take this off the mobile view. If we reduce that, if you hover over it, it doesn't drop down by itself. You actually have to tap it or you have to click it. And then you have the drop down menu. So some people like it like that and others want the hover effect. So I'll show you how to add that hover effect now and then we'll add some CSS as well. So let's go back to our code editor. If we go back over here into our JavaScript folder, you remember we have the navigation.js. Click on that and this is all the code that's in that file. This is the JavaScript that handles the navigation for underscores itself. But for this, we can actually delete this because we're not going to be using it. So I'll just select all and replace it with this code right here. And then we'll save it. Now what this is basically going to give us a nice hover effect as we hover over our navigation menu. But then we also have to add some more CSS as well. Because if we go back to our browser, we get some nice effect there. But we're going to need some more styling around it. So what we're going to do now is go into our SAS folder. And then we're going to go into the navigation folder over here. And then we have 3 files here that we're going to look at. The first one is this one. This is being called in, this file right here is being called in by style.scss right over here. It's at importing the navigation folder navigation file. That's this file in this folder. And in this file, we're at importing these files over here. So you could open this up and you can see what this is doing. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually comment this section out. And then we're going to create another section. And we'll add import. We'll call it the BS menu for Bootstrap menu. We'll save that. Now we have to create that file. So what we're going to do is over here, I'll right click, new file, underscore BS menu dot .scss. Enter return. And now we have our blank file. So I'm going to paste in some code and then I'll walk you through what it's doing. Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm targeting the elements that Bootstrap uses for its navigation. So I have my media query over here for a max width of 414 pixels, targeting the navbar -nav, having it to float none, jump out of there, open up another media query with max width of 767 pixels, and then I'm targeting the navbar header, navbar -nav, and then the nav with the li, which is the list item, and then the anchor element, giving it no padding at that point. Again, it's inside this media query. Make sure you're looking at this code and copying it exactly the way it is. Or you could just get the DevWP theme from my website. This is targeting the drop-down menu. And then over here, this is another media query with a min width and a max width. So I want to target this specific class when inside this range of width over here. Again, remember your syntax. You're opening and closing curly brackets. With media queries, an easy thing to forget is to close it out. So you want to make sure you always have that closed out. And then I'm jumping back out of the media query. Have the navbar right there. Setting the margin top. The navbar -header, float right. Navbar collapse. Navbar default, border none. Navbar toggle, float none, margin right 0. The width for the icon bar. And then border none, box shadow none. And then inside another media query, we're targeting our site-nav class, at a max width of 991 pixels. The alignment will be centered. Navbar header will float none. Display inline block for the navbar-nav. And then over here, we have another media query. And this I could actually move up on top a little bit further. I'll do that at another point. I'm going to refactor all this code just to make sure it's fully optimized. But for now, let's just continue to go over this. In the min width of 768 pixels, we're targeting this set of classes over here. And then when it's open, this is what happens. Gives it a nice transition. That's the drop-down dash menu. Then this is stuff for the comments, for the nav and previous, nav and next. This is stuff that's actually not for the navigation. I just put it here for now because I did take out this over here. So this is for the comment nav, nav links, and then we're going to add a scroll to top. So I just threw in the CSS for that over here as well. All right, so we saved that. Now let's go back to our browser. And now you see it's shifted and adjusted. You still have to drop down. But you see that it's no longer right up against the top. Now it's more aligned with site title and tagline. And now we see that it's centered over here. And the links are centered down below. So now we have the nav bar taken care of. Just to recap what we just did, we added this code to our stylesheet.scss via the navigation folder, and by adding a file called _bsmenu.scss. This is the CSS for that. We swapped out the code in the navigation.js and replaced it with this code right here. In our functions.php file, we made sure to change this to the primary versus the menu-1, which was there previously. And at the bottom, we made sure to require that file that we just added as well over here in our includes folder right there. And this is that file. This is a lot of code over here, so instead of me just going up and down and showing you all the code, you could just get this code right here on GitHub. And you could just copy the entire file, wp-bootstrap-navwalker.php, and place it over here. And then inside the header.php file, we changed out the nav section, and this is the code that we placed there. So take a moment, pause the video if you have to, copy the code, and when you're ready, we'll get started again. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add the scroll to top. So what we're going to do now, we're going to open up our functions.php file, make sure we're in this section over here. We're going to go into our JavaScript folder. We're going to right click in the JavaScript folder name right there, new file, and then we could call this scroll-top.js. Get an empty file over here, and now you see we have another file inside of our JavaScript folder called scroll-top.js. So what I'm going to do here is I'll bring in a code snippet that I have for the scroll to top functionality. Alright, so this is the code we're going to be working with. Pretty much this is just going to give us an ability to, when we scroll past a certain point, to be able to scroll back to the top. We'll save that. Now inside of our functions.php file, we're going to have to enqueue that JavaScript file. And then over here, alright, so what we're doing is we're using the WP_enqueue_script function in PHP. We're giving ourselves the handle of dev-wp-scroll-top using get-template directory URI. And then we're jumping into our JavaScript folder and then getting this file right here. Make sure it matches. Alright, so now just save that, go back to your browser. And since we're using Browserify, this will already have taken effect. So if we go over here and we start scrolling, you see we now have the scroll to top arrow over here. It's nice and smooth. You can play around with the speed of it by changing this value over here. Let's say we're going to put it to 200. Say we're going to make it to 800. You see, the higher the value, the slower it takes. So customize it, play around with it the way you want in terms of the speed. But now you have a nice, easy scroll to top. And that's using the code that we added over here to this JavaScript file. The CSS we added at the bottom over here, some very simple CSS. You can change around the color if you want. You can change the position at the bottom. But this CSS over here, in conjunction with this, and being included in our functions.php file, we now have that scroll to top functionality. Alright, so I think this is going to be a good spot to end the video. We covered a lot. We took care of the navigation, we added the scroll to top, we fine-tuned our header.php file, we added our new file over here for the nav walker, we made sure to include it in the functions file, we included our JavaScript file as well, we swapped out the navigation, we added our Bootstrap CSS for the drop-down effect, and we took out the normalized file that we no longer need. We go back to the browser, you see how it's working, we have the nice drop-down effect. And as you can see, it's looking good. I mean, obviously we still have a ways to go. We changed the font size of the text on the screen as well, but it's responding nicely. In the next video, what I'll do is I'll create some more page templates and single post templates. We'll also center this site title and tagline once it reaches a certain breakpoint. And then I'll also create a frontpage.php file and the home.php file, and I'll show you how to properly configure them. So that way you have options with your theme. If you want to use it like a blog row page, or if you want to use it with a static front page, you'll be able to do that. And then we'll create some more rigidized areas. Alright, so I'm going to end the video at this point. I just wanted to make sure you had some new code that you could work with. If you want to actually get the file, so that way you don't have to pause the video and copy the code, then just head over to PixemWeb.com, DevWP, and then click on the Get DevWP link over here. This is a great way for you to copy and paste the code straight to your custom theme. And anytime I make an update, I'll send you out new files and folders. Alright, hopefully you found the video helpful. We covered a lot, but there's still a long way for us to go. There's a lot of functionality that we have to add to our theme. As we progress forward, I'll show you how to add sliders to your theme. I'll show you how to add modal windows. I'll show you how to add some more different types of functionality, page layouts, things of that nature. So again, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification icon down below so that way whenever I create a new video, you'll be notified. And I'll see you next time. Take care.